Right, this piece is called 1985. It's my view of British politics over the last 30 years, through my lifetime. I struggled with the conclusion until a couple of weeks ago, and then Jeremy Corbyn got elected leader of the Labour Party, and I had my conclusion. I don't think he's got the solution to everything. I don't think he pretends to either. But him being elected and the process he got elected by, those hustings, open meetings, and now what he's trying to do to sort of re-democratise the Labour Party, open it back up again, that feels like the biggest shift to the left there's been in British politics through my life. It's the first thing I've felt positive about in British politics for a long time, as you'll see in this poem. See, I was born in the year we lost the first battle of this war, 1985. At the end of that 12-month-long siege when Thatcher, Joseph, McGregor and Ridley drew blood from workers across the country by demolishing an industry. When they opened season and dismembered our communities and began the long drawn-out process of flogging our public industry, services and utilities to the lowest possible bidder. Buy one, get two free. Managed decline is the creepy, disgusting, spine-chilling phrase they used to describe this. People knew what was going on, but they didn't find out officially until very recently. In the previous year, the government, they had flooded the north with uniforms, coppers with barbaric form, paramilitary police who'd cut their teeth on brothers and sisters in Belfast and St Paul's, Toxteth and Brixton. These specimens were rotted by right to buy and jingoism, encased in body armour and then packed in transit vans, fed tenors and taught to wave them, and taught tactics and strategies too, that have been wheeled out again and again, sharpened and honed each time for the 30 years since. And this battle hasn't just been fought by the pigs. Because after the miners, after they had their throats slit, the state fought a dirty, insidious social war against them and the rest of the British working class, and the earth they lived on was scorched. All of this was, of course, carefully noted. Those notes compiled and filed next to the results of their vile experiments in Chile under Pinochet. And it may have been developed and tweaked somewhat, but effectively this has been held up as a torch by subsequent governments worldwide, a blueprint for union busting and social disfigurement, making workers redundant, turning into victims and then attacking them as claimants. In a year of screams, hunger and blood, they laid the foundation for 30 years of punishments, attacks and humiliations. And here we are now, 30 years later. And the leaders of the so-called opposition from those days, well, they've long since shown their true colours. The treacherous windbag Kinnock, who put his own elected councillors in the company of prison officers on the orders of Maggie. And then after Thatcher had finished with us and Major, they had their crack at governing. And by they I mean Progress and the right wing of Labour. They used their stooges in the movement to manoeuvre and drive out real fighters and agitators. And then they had 13 of their own long years as chief market deregulators. Nearly a decade and a half of telling us we were all so well off. And Tony took us into Iraq against our wishes, and when the march was over and those bombs dropped, the strongest perfumes couldn't mask the stench of human death and political rot. How many years have passed, and how many people are still waiting for that phone call from Chilcot? They introduced PFI, PPP, opened the door to privatisation, hamstrung trade unionists with the Warwick Agreement, a lash up with the bosses for capital's appeasement. And Blair parroted Giddens and talked about the underclass, got workers tripping over other workers to deny being working class. New Labour was not intended to be and never was a weapon to be used in the hands of the have-nots. It was a reinforced steel box painted red to protect the haves. And it clunked along under Gordon's control. Then, May 2010. That was fucking grim. We needed political opposition, not a party who cowered when those blue size 12s swung for our teeth. On Miliband, I've got to say, I pity Ed. 5 years of getting repeatedly kicked in the head by the newspapers, the Tories and the dark forces of his own party, a lamb to the slaughter. I don't give a fuck about bacon butties or how people ought to eat them. But where was he? What did he say when Alfie Meadows got beaten? Or Mark Duggan got shot down? Was he around? Was there even the faintest sound of argument when IDS used ATOS and workfare to drive people to torment? No. The mutter of sheepish agreement or the sound of silence. And you know what? Abstaining isn't opposing, it's throwing the fucking towel in. And then on May the 8th this year, when the walls came in, we'd all disappeared up the bumhole of our social networks. And we said there'd been no telling. The press said it was because Ed was too left-wing, his party colleagues, they gathered around him, pushed him into his grave, and swore blind that he fell in. And what now? Well, not what we fucking thought, eh? If you claim to have predicted this, you're either a bookmaker or a liar. I don't like the terms old and new Labour. The party has always been fundamentally contradicted, but over the last 15 years since I've become politically active, I've sworn the Labour Party was a sunken ship. Its lifeblood drained from it, year to year, drip by drip. Maybe I wasn't wrong. We'll see. But it's hard not to be inspired by pictures of thronged public meetings in your hometown and 3 Republican socialists sat opposite the Prime Minister now. Events you never expected to see coming round. Now, I can't remember the exact source of this quote, but to paraphrase, we can have 20 years without all happening. And then we can have another 20 passing a day. And it feels like one of those moments. I get sick to the back teeth, and I'm sure all you other lefties do too, with that Life of Brian analogy about splitters, so here's my own. Corbyn, McDonnell and Abbott are not the messiahs, but the establishment appear for now to think they're pretty naughty. I just hope they're not cowed by the media artillery they're already facing, the white noise of red baiting. News channels and papers stating again and then restating the same lies, trying repeatedly to pull a steel sheet of fear over newly engaged eyes. Whether you think they'll succeed or not, or even if you don't agree with what they consider succeeding to be, we live in dangerous and exciting times. Across Europe and the world, the boat's being rocked. To starboard and port, to left and to right, and after 30 years of grey murk, of British politics existing in the half-light, principles banished to lurk in dark corners, locked out in a cold night, well now, the class lines we all know run deep through society. Both of those sides are, for the first time in a long time, represented in the corridors of power. The door's ajar, and now it needs kicking open.